Hear me well? Thanks for being here. So I'm going to talk to you about our philosophy program, which has been running. I'm going to now share the screen. Which has been running since 2014, at least the English language version, and we have had already something like I think 50 or 60 graduates. So I'm going to just give you like 3 reasons to study philosophy in Tartu, and in doing this, of course, I will give you an overview of our program, what our program looks like, and why it might be attractive to you. And of course, I'm willing to answer any questions later. Okay, so I'm Francesco Orsi. I'm the program director of the master program. So what are these 3 reasons? One reason is, by the way, Tartu is not always so sunny as it looks in the picture here. Maybe I should have chosen a more realistic picture of Tartu. But this is our beautiful main building of the university. So one reason is definitely our faculty. Now I just posted here a few pretty faces, but apart from our pretty faces, we are ready to give you really our best. And what I mean by that is, well, a couple of things. So one is that we are really devoted teachers, really care about our students and our master students in particular. And recently, one of my colleagues, Alex Davis, has also been awarded the Best Teacher of the Year award last year. He teaches philosophy of language mainly. But apart from Alex, our supervisors, I calculated actually, on average, we devote 420 hours to our own master students. And later I will explain why so much time. And this is not counting the final master thesis. So we are like pretty devoted to our BA, but also to our master students. And we do establish pretty intense work and study relationships with our students. Another thing about our faculty is that we have published in some of the main international journals and some of the main international publishers. Now these names might perhaps not say much to all of you, but Oxford University Press and Cambridge University Press and Routledge, these are some of the main philosophy publishers in the world. And journals like Mind, you can see it here, or Philosophical Studies, Synthese, Mind and Language. So what I can say is that our faculty has a clear like international profile in terms of our research, and so in this sense, if you come to study philosophy in Tartu, you're really going to be in good and kind of expert philosophical hands, so to speak. And one last thing about our faculty that I wanted to highlight is that our research interests are actually very, very diverse. Now I've just stuck here on this page some titles of recent articles that were published by our faculty, and as you can see, we cover a lot of different topics in philosophy. So time in philosophy and psychology, that's one topic. Situated embodiment. I don't mean that all of this must be clear to you right now, but I think this just gives you an idea of the range of our interests. Meal and sexual reform, statelessness, refugees, hospitality, are experts representative on non-experts? This is a huge topic nowadays, of course. Ethical decision making in humanitarian medicine, conflicting models of faith in early modern philosophy, Plato on the rationality of belief. This just goes to show that we deal both with purely theoretical questions in philosophy, right? Like time in philosophy and psychology. We also deal with ethical questions, like I just showed you before, like the question of refugees, the question of sexual reform, the question of ethical decision making, but also we deal with history of philosophy, early modern philosophy, Plato, and then some other questions, like some other topics like harms and wrongs in epistemic practice, using not tasty at the dinner table. This is a topic in the philosophy of language. What does it mean to use such words, basically, right? When something is tasty or not tasty. Communicating by doing something else. Again, this belongs to the philosophy of language. Conflict in Nietzsche's philosophy. Again, this historical perspective. So this is just to give you a really rough kind of overview of what our interest might be and what you might yourself come to study. And I'm going to say a little bit more about this right now. Right, so your studies. So what we offer our master students is a mix of classes and what I would call tutorial style sessions. So what is a tutorial style session? A tutorial style session is when you basically study something with a professor, with a lecturer, right? And you write some essays, you write some assignments, and you meet, whether live or on Skype or whatever nowadays, right? But you meet to discuss those readings that you've done, those essays that you wrote, right? So this is what tutorial basically means. But of course, there's also going to be a large part of work that you do together with your course mates. And as you can see from this pie chart that I put here, right? You can see that the largest part of our program, right, is indeed devoted to your own interests, to what you want to study, what you want to go in depth with. So if you take this 40%, this green area, so that's the specialization. I'm going to say something more about specialization in a second. But then we have 25%, so a full quarter of your program will be devoted to your master's thesis. And then there are other parts of your program that some parts are fixed, some parts are also up to you to decide what to do with them, basically. So I thought it would be a nice idea to present our program as if it was a menu, right? So in a sense, our entree is the master seminar, which is something that runs through all the 4 semesters. So our master program is also a 2-year program. The master seminar runs through each semester, and that's a place where you definitely will join your course mates and we'll discuss your work in progress, and you also learn essentially how to present philosophy, how to write philosophy, in general, how to present your philosophical ideas. And then the research seminar is also part of the entree. In the research seminar, you will basically meet some of our faculty who will teach you about their current research, right? So this is a very good opportunity to get to know what we are actually working on. The main course, so to speak, of our program is this specialization module, and I'm going to say something more about it in a second. The side dish, so to speak, right? The side dish is composed of 3 things: the elective subjects. Now, the elective subjects are courses, right? That in part you're free to choose which courses you want to do. In part, there's going to be a fixed list of courses that you choose from philosophy and from the rest of the humanities. Then there's the optional subjects. Now, the optional subjects are totally up to you to decide, right? It could be any course. It doesn't have to be even related to philosophy in any way. So we've had students taking, I don't know, painting classes for their optional subjects. Although painting can be related to philosophy itself. I'm not going to say that it's not related, but And then there's the practice part, the practice side dish, so to speak, where you're going to do some assisting work or some real work in some institution, or help organize some conference. There's many ways in which you can fulfill your practice part. And then comes the dessert, a big fat dessert, which is basically your master's thesis. And like just like a dessert, it comes at the end of your meal, in the sense that it actually, in the last semester of your studies, you are going to basically just figure out your master's thesis and write it and then defend it. So it actually makes quite sense to present it as your dessert. Okay, so that's the menu, so to speak. That's our program. A couple of words about the specialization module, right? What is it? Basically, it's like a box, right? A box that it's up to you how to fill this box. So it's usually a mix of classes and individual studies. Okay. By classes, I mean courses that we offer in the department. We don't necessarily offer them only to master students, right? But we offer them mainly having in mind master students. And every year there's a list of courses. So if you later you might ask me, I thought I would put some links here, but perhaps if I link now, then I'm going to lose the screen sharing. So, but later we might discuss about these classes, what these classes are. And then the individual studies, right? So the individual studies is just what I talked about before. A work, that kind of study that you do with a specific lecturer, which is usually your own supervisor, right? And you agree with your supervisor about how much individual study you want to do, right? And then, like I said here, the percentage of each of these components, percentage of classes, percentage of individual studies, is up to you and your supervisor to decide. Okay, so this is just to give you a sample of what your studies will actually look like in each of the 4 semesters. So you can see there are 4 columns here with each semester, right? And here also gives you like an idea of the classes that you might take. So this particular student, for example, in the first semester, right? If you look at the first semester column, the student took 2 courses in the inside the specialization. She took main themes in philosophy of mind, and she also took a course that is not in philosophy. That was neurobiology of behavior, right? Because you're actually free within the specialization. You are free also to choose courses from outside of philosophy, as long as you and your supervisor think that those courses are actually going to be useful for you. And then the student took individual study in theoretical philosophy, as you can see, right? With her own supervisor, right? And in the second semester, the student took, again, like 2 courses: introduction to epistemology, and then a reading group on mental causation, and then again.
Francesco, sorry, we cannot hear you. You are muted. Could you please unmute yourself? You are still muted. We cannot hear you.
Okay, now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, but how long ago did I go mute?
I immediately, when we stopped hearing you, I immediately told you. So you basically, okay, on that slide that you were the last.
Okay, yeah, great, thanks. I don't know what happened, but okay. Where was I? Yeah. Right. So here you can see like what this student basically did, right? So the supervisor has a fairly important role in our program, right? He or she is the person who helps you put together your semester plan, because for each semester you're going to write up a plan of what you want to do. And so the supervisor kind of helps you compose that and decide whether it's a reasonable plan, whether it's too much work, whether it's too little work. The supervisor is also the one who supervises or advises your master's thesis, right? So it is the person to turn to whenever you have already a plan for your thesis, whenever you have like a table of contents or some ideas, right? The supervisor does individual studies with you, although you can also do these individual studies with other members of faculty. And many students actually take individual studies from not just from their own supervisor, but usually it's the supervisor who spends those 422 hours that I talked about before, right? And the supervisor has kind of a mentor role as well, also after you finish your master's program, because it's the most likely person to write, for example, a letter of recommendation for you if you're going to apply to a PhD program, if you're going to apply also for a non-academic job, if you want to apply for a scholarship, right? Because the supervisor is the professor who knows you best, and so is the one that has more to say about you. Hopefully, has more to say something good about you, but right. So it's important that you get on well with your supervisor, right? And coming now to the dessert, that is to your master's thesis, right? I think what we expect from our students is a fairly original research work in philosophy, right? So not just some kind of summary of what other philosophers have said, right? But we want to see your own contribution to a particular philosophical question, right? So very important that you actually identify some philosophical question that you're going to pursue in your master thesis. And I've just given you here quite a random list actually of master theses that have been defended lately. So we go from topics like feminist perspectives on cybersex to unconditional basic income to can computers be creative. Then we have this discrepancy between free will and moral responsibility, logic of knowledge and demonstratives, defining empathy, playing with monsters, but not real monsters, but this is actually a topic in philosophy of language again. And then more historical topics like Kant, but on a specific problem like Kant on manipulation and personal autonomy, for example, right? So a master thesis has to be have a fairly specific topic that you are going quite in depth into. Okay. So the last reason to choose to study philosophy in Tartu is your future, and put up this kind of funny comics here, which I think there's some truth in it. Well, this guy says, "Me, I'm going to be a philosopher. By the time I grow up, robots will be doing everything else," right? And maybe it's true, right? It's true that philosophy gives you some kind of skills, some kind of abilities, or at least it trains you to do a number of things that is going to be that probably robots, right, are not going to be able to do, and you do need the human factor, so to speak, and right. But so more specifically, I have in mind two things here. One is that you might just go on to study for a PhD, and over 50% of our graduates have done so, and we prepare you for this. Some amount of your work with your supervisor will also be devoted to preparing a PhD application, which normally includes preparing like a writing sample and some letter of motivation. And so this is very much part of the training that we give you. By the way, this is going to be useful also if you apply for some other kind of job. But of course, we are philosophers, so we know best how to train you for life as an academic, not just as a philosopher. Just I wanted to highlight this, that some of our students have gone on to study for a PhD in a related subject, not quite in philosophy. For example, here we have Aliena, who went to go to the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands, and she took not quite philosophy, but a PhD program in health, ethics, and society. So kind of, but other students have gone to, for example, William, British student, he went to study philosophy in University of Melbourne, Australia. Trinu, she went to the University of Vienna, and Jing Hei went to Columbia University in New York City, and many other places in the world. So I don't want to like now just, but this is just to say that at least many of our students have chosen this kind of career path, and they've been quite successful when they chose that path. Okay, but of course, the other option is to use your philosophical skills or philosophical knowledge, so to speak, to take the big wide world. So we have had graduates who went to work in the IT sector. One particular graduate student went to work at this company called Starship Technologies. They are the people who produce these delivery robots, which who deliver mail and packages and parcels and stuff like that, and they're based in Tallinn. Other students are working for the main Estonian newspaper, Postimees, including one Estonian student, but also one not Estonian student wrote several articles for Postimees. And some of our students have gone on to work for governmental institutions like the UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and in particular the Estonian National Commission for UNESCO in Tallinn. So as you can see, there is the job market doesn't look too bad for people who graduate from our program. Okay, last thing I want to give you just a memo about the admissions process, right? I invite you to visit our website, ut.ee/philosophy. The deadline, like other programs, is 15th of March. You need to have a BA diploma by June or July, but I stress that the BA doesn't have to be in philosophy. In fact, I think every year we receive half applications are from philosophy graduates, half applications are from non-philosophy graduates. And in my experience, non-philosophy graduates have caught up with the others. And to be honest, I think they've actually been even more successful later or during the master studies and also later than philosophy graduates, right? And the admission basis is based on three pieces. One is the motivation letter and the writing sample that you need to submit when you actually apply. On the basis of those two, so we're gonna give you some grades based on the motivation letter and the writing sample. On the basis of that, we will invite you for an interview, which again is going to be, of course, online. The top 8 candidates will not pay university fees. Four places are reserved for European candidates, including Switzerland and the other countries like Norway and so on. And 4 are reserved for non-EU candidates. Okay. Did I go mute again? No. Great. Okay.
No.
Now the top 2, maybe 3, but I cannot make promises really here. But the top 2 or 3 will also receive a maintenance grant, which will allow you actually to live quite comfortably in a place like Tartu. So the next thing to do is just to visit us on Facebook, and if you have any questions, write to this address, tartuphilosophy@ut.e, and I will personally answer. But of course, you're welcome to ask me any questions right now.